collaborative exercise throughout the course tonight. And so if you are able to turn on your microphone at some point, that would be great. I will let you know when it's time to do so, and we'll utilize the Zoom breakout features. But otherwise, I am ready to get started because I know we have a lot to cover. If at any time you need me to stop, holler, let me know. I'll try my best to be watching the chat and things, but the best way to get my attention is just to shout at me. So I'm going to move just slightly. And we will get started. One more time, I'm in the chat. We've got the packet in case anyone couldn't get it before. All right, let's get into the content, shall we? Okay, can I just get a verbal yes from someone in the virtual classroom? Make sure you can see my slides and everything's good to go.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. So it is an honor to be with you guys today. I'm going to read this information from Blue Ridge. Let me move this chat box. So sorry about that. This training is brought to you by the Small Business Center at Blue Ridge Community College, one of 58 small business centers across the state. Blue Ridge Community College's Small Business Center provides free services for entrepreneurs, small business owners, and nonprofit executives and boards. Free seminars, workshops, webinars, and conferences provide training to all small businesses and nonprofit community on a variety of topics for businesses at any stage. One-on-one business counseling aims to provide focused expertise by pairing clients with subject matter experts in their business's area of need. This can include CPAs, attorneys, marketing and branding experts, and financial planning strategists, among many others. So click the link. My folks online, I will drop this link in the chat as well. But you should be able to click this link to learn more if you are interested. Make sure we don't have anybody else trying to get in before we really get into the meat of the day. Okay. I think we are good to go. All right, so I would love to introduce myself. My name is Maddie. I am a former teacher, turned HR professional about 4 years ago. I live in Brevard, so I'm actually about 10 minutes from the community college, so it's an honor to be in the community college in a different capacity today. This is my family. I've got my husband Alex and 2 young kids, 2 under 2, so our household's a little bit crazy. Laura is our au pair. She's from Columbia. She actually is immersed in the community college as well, taking some courses, and so it's just a privilege to share my leadership and HR expertise with you over the next few weeks. This is my colleague. His name is Stan Gibson. He should be joining me on a couple of the classes today. He's traveling, so he won't be able to join me today. But he and I developed what we call the Leadership Lab, which is a 12-month cohort that we are taking teams through, teams of executives from all over the country. And we are immersing them in this program with the hopes of developing and honing their leadership skills. That's why it's called a lab, because the idea is that it is actually building the muscle of leadership rather than something that you can stick on your resume, just something you can stick on your resume. So Stan and I have been great colleagues. We have a podcast actually coming out later this month that will do a deeper dive on all of this material. But the class that you are joining today, this is an adaptation of that 12-month program. So you're getting a very small glimpse into kind of this larger leadership teaching initiative. So that's why I said we have a lot to cover. We may not get to it, and that's okay, but we are going to do our very best. So I would love to know who we have in the room. I'll start with my folks, my one folk here physically with me, the rest of you guys online. I'll give you an opportunity to unmute and to introduce yourself as well. Most interested in knowing your name, kind of the industry, the type of business that you are involved in, and your role in the business, specifically when it comes to leadership. Are you managing employees? Are you hoping to grow and manage employees? Wasn't sure how many people we were going to have, so I had a 30-second timer, but we can take as long as we need to because we're doing great on our numbers. So if you don't mind, I'll spin just to show everybody in the room. But yes, go ahead.
Edward Neslick. I'm in the construction business industry as a project manager and currently leading people to put parts together.
Yes, very important.
Even customer understanding is very key to make them feel like you're trustworthy and you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Having the customer sense. I've actually talked with someone recently about how the customer experience and the employee experience are so intertwined, like how it's critical to connect your employee experience with the client experience, that if you're investing in one, you're investing in the other, hopefully. So
Right.
Great. So I will pivot to our online folks. Brittany Marshall, your name popped up first on my screen. If you wouldn't mind giving us a little bit of an introduction.
Sure. Hi. I work at First Bank, which is very close to the college there, and I am an area manager, so I do manage people, and I have a passion for leadership and development and growth. And so when I saw this leadership lab, I thought, oh boy, I can definitely learn a lot. So I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brittany. I've got Keith Phillips is next on my list. So Keith, would you mind giving us an introduction?
Yeah, good afternoon. I am in media, marketing, communications, very diverse. My primary job has and will continue to involve managing very diverse multidisciplinary teams and managing creative teams where you really have to harness a lot of different ideas and personalities to achieve a common goal. And sometimes those personalities have different opinions. So it's really hoping to learn more about team building and working with diverse skill sets and personalities.
That's awesome. Yes. And Keith, that you bring up a great point. Our next session will be on
I'm on a call, just so you know.
Communication and conflict resolution as well. So kind of how do we speak the different languages of all the people that are on our team? So that's great that you brought that up. Also in the packet, if you look at that first page, there's a section on like objectives, hopes, desires for today. So while you're listening to the introductions, that's a great opportunity to write down some hopes for our class today and hopefully the weeks beyond. So thank you, Keith, for your introduction. I've got Nicole next on my list. Nicole, would you mind giving us an introduction?
There we go. So I'm trying to figure out how to show you my video. So I'm home and I have 4 children here right now, and I'm just trying to find a quiet space. So my name's Nicole Rule. I do marketing and communications at Fernleaf Community Charter School, which is in Fletcher, North Carolina. So I don't necessarily directly manage people. I also do events at Fernleaf. So I do a lot of collaboration and sometimes managing, but I'm not technically a direct manager. And I think that is something I'm trying to work into. So this was just seemed like a really natural fit for me to continue to grow and move on in my career.
Certainly, yes. And I think leadership too, at least the way we're going to talk about leadership, is much more of a way of carrying yourself than it is a title. So that's great because you, in some capacity, maybe even with your kids, it sounds like you are leading something in someone. So I'm glad that you're here and hopefully you'll glean a lot of information over the next few weeks.
Yes, thank you.
We've heard from, I think Lauren Allison is next on my list. Lauren, do you mind giving us
Hi, I'm Lauren. I am the program manager for Mountain Care Adult Day Services in Hendersonville. I do directly manage people. I have a team of 9.
Okay, wonderful. Awesome. Thank you. And I saw someone else, I think, from your organization just jumped in as well. So
Yes, that's my boss.
great to have you guys. Thank you. Charles, I have Charles Hayward next on my list. Charles?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Charles. I'm in construction, have a construction company and a real estate firm in Jacksonville, North Carolina. I have 4 crews currently that I'm in control of as far as scheduling, managing their ups and downs in their personal life and business life all in one.
What I hear from a lot of small business leaders, it's like, we're doing a little bit of everything. So it's great to have you. Travel safe. Let's see. I've got R. Mabry. I'm sorry if I am mispronouncing your name, but would you give us an introduction?
Good afternoon. My name is Rebecca and I work in higher education. So I would say probably similar to Nicole. I don't directly supervise at this time, but I do work with teams, different teams of students. And so just looking for some professional development.
Wonderful. Glad to have you.
Thank you.
I've got Suzanne next. Suzanne, would you give us an introduction? Hi, welcome. Come on in.
Hi, I'm Suzanne. I have a small farm where I grow flowers and also do farmers markets, CSA, full service weddings, and have 3 to 7 part-time people who help me seasonally. And I'd say as I reflect on the past year and most years, like working with the folks who help me, some of the highest points and some of the lowest points. And that's even with a massive hurricane going through. So always room for improvement. I've been managing farms and people working on farms for close to 20 years. Still just trying to get better and figure it out and see how we can all work together best to get things done and be healthy, well human beings.
That's absolutely correct. And you bring up a great point. Leadership is dynamic and we've all experienced in some capacity this crazy disaster of Helene. And so I'm sure everyone has had leadership challenges thrown for a loop in the last few months as well. So glad to have you. And yeah, we will hopefully grow and evolve together. Let's see. I think I'm out of order on my list here. Leah Bush, I believe, was next. If you wouldn't mind giving us your introduction.
Hi, so I'm Leah Bush. I am mom, and I also have 3 kids in the background trying to find a quiet space to work. But I am the director of children and family programming at the Family Place here in Tradesmania County. So, yes, I am a director and have direct reports at 2 locations and numerous programs kind of across the county, depending on what we're offering at the time. And I saw your kids earlier today too. They're
Yes,
super cute.
we love the Family Place. We are there almost all the time. So very glad to have you, Leah. That's great. We heard from Keith, I think Adam Stallings.
Hey, how are you?
Hi, well, how are you?
Good. Sorry, here. I got called away. I'm in the office. Got called away. Of course, right as soon as you called my name. But I'm Adam, with First Bank, like Brittany and Amanda, and I have Kendra here.
Hi, Kendra.
So we are personal bankers, and so really this leadership course is for me personally. I have management experience, and so obviously some good refresher things and things I can learn. I'm just really interested in seeing what this course, these courses are all about, and so I think. I don't want to speak for Kendra. Yeah, I think Kendra is kind of in the same boat, just eager to learn.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have y'all and perfect that you can stream this together.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Of course. Let's see. Robin Fredrickson.
Hi, I'm Robin. I manage a coffee shop in West Asheville. I have a small team of about 9, maybe. And I'm just always interested and eager to learn how I can help them in a pretty often chaotic environment. I don't have any official management training. I just kind of have been learning as I go. I've been a manager at various places, and my boss, the owner of the coffee shop, is here with me today, Audrey, and she's been very helpful in kind of mentoring me in this position.
Wonderful, great. We're happy to have you, Robin, and Audrey as well. Audrey, we can kick to you since you guys are colleagues. Do you want to give an introduction?
Sure. I actually just got kicked off. My Wi-Fi
Oh, no.
just disappeared on me, but I got back in, which is good. So yeah, I'm Audrey Blomquist. I own Odds Cafe, and as I start working on other projects and trying to pull away a little bit from the shop, it's important to have leadership skills and to know how to let go and to lean on others. And I saw this as a great opportunity for both Robin and I to learn a little bit more.
Well, hopefully it sparks great conversation, not only today, but between you guys as you grow. I hear a lot of colleagues in the room, so that's really cool. Wonderful. Let's see. I think we heard from Lauren. Davey, would you give an introduction?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Davey. I'm from Connecticut. I moved to North Carolina about 4 months ago with my wife, and starting life fresh again. I've launched a business and in the very initial startup phase. So leadership is something that's important personally for me and also for where I'm targeting my life to be. So looking forward to these sessions. Thank you.
Welcome to the state. I moved here about 2 years ago, so I'm not too far ahead of you. It's a great place to be. Looking, Emily Smith, I apologize. I can't remember. I'm getting lost in my alphabetical order. Well, it wasn't ever alphabetical, but Emily, if you have not given your introduction, would you give us one?
Yes, I'm Emily Grace, and I own a business where I do embodiment coaching for individuals, and I do corporate workshops as well. And I also own a business in marketing consulting for innovation companies and venture capitalist firms. And as I'm hiring in both of those, I'm looking to build leadership skills. So I'm happy to be here.
Wonderful. Couple marketing folks in the room. Very cool. Let's see. We heard, I believe, from Nicole. Robert G. Robert, could you give an introduction? We might have lost you. That's okay. We'll come back to you. Amy K. Amy, could you give an introduction?
Hey, how are you doing? I'm just the first up material.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we can hear you now, Robert. Amy, we'll come back to you. Oh. Robert, go ahead if you're with us. I think your microphone is muted, but maybe you are unavailable. We'll come back to you, Robert. Amy, if you're there, take it away. Okay. Anyone else I missed virtually who was not able to give an introduction? I was trying to watch the sequencing, but anyone I missed online? Okay. Wonderful. We've got a couple more folks in the room that joined us during our intros. We had one introduction already. Shane, I'll go ahead and give your name. Would you give an introduction? We're just talking about your name, your industry, and your leadership, like how many people you're leading currently.
Brad, and I own Greenville Cleaning Company. And we have maybe 12 of us total right now. And no skills in leadership, really just kind of learning as I go. So just kind of looking to learn some better skills in that area. And honestly, anything that you're teaching, I'm happy to listen because I'm sure I can learn some really good skills from you in any setting.
Thank you. Shane and I have had the chance to work together through the small business counseling and gotten to continue that relationship. So great to have you in the room. Would you mind giving us an introduction?
Green. Started business with, manufacturing, machine shop, welding, metalworking, and, not really doing a lot of business right now. I've got one employee, gets maybe 30 hours a week, but, I've been working on this, getting this project rolling for a few years, so I've had like weekend gig employees for a couple of years now, but it's, now I got one guy coming full-time, just not full-time, part-time, full-time for him,
Yeah.
full-time. It's a
Yeah.
full-time job, but,
Yeah.
so that's it.
Great. Awesome. Well, I am excited to be with you guys. Thanks for giving me some insight into what people's exposure and experience is with leadership to this point. Sounds like we've got a mix. We've got people who've been leading teams for a long time, and we've got people who've never led a team formally, but are excited to grow. So no matter what, I think you'll find some valuable takeaways today and in the weeks to come. So this is part 1 of a 3-part series. We'll be meeting same time next Monday, same place, physically or online, and we will do one more session after that. So in your packet, as I mentioned before, I'll resend it in the chat just in case. This is going to be a great companion, and if you don't have one, they're like by the front of the room over, I guess back of the room over there. There are some spots to, whoops, see. Here we go. These are some of the objectives for today. Understanding your unique strengths, adopting a growth mindset, the power of self-awareness, collaboration is key, and taking immediate action. So we got to hear a little bit already what your hopes are for our time together. Feel free to jot some more ideas down there. We will revisit this in the next 2 sections at the end of the class. So right underneath that in your packet, you'll see today's takeaways. So feel free to come back to this as we are walking through the material today. And jot down some things that stand out to you, some things you want to take away from our time together. And even below that, you'll see the lingering questions. So an opportunity to jot down a question that arises if I'm either not able to answer it due to time, or I need to do a little more research and get back to you, jot down some questions there. And I will find you an answer somehow, some way. So the first thing I want you to do is the, I guess, second page of your packet, story of my strengths. So much of leadership is understanding how you're wired. It's understanding how you show up at your best and eventually how your employees are going to show up at their best. But it starts with you. And so I want you to take, I'll set a 10-minute timer. It might not take us that long, but take about 10 minutes to work through this story of my strengths exercise. And I hope it will give you kind of a, it'll dust off the parts of your brain, you know, that aren't thinking about welding now. You can start thinking about your strengths, break us into some of the work we're going to do today. So we'll take about 10 minutes and we will come together after that. Anyone online not able to open the packet or have any trouble with this, finding this exercise? Just shout at me if so, because I can't see you, unfortunately. I can only hear you. I'll take the silence as a good thing. Okay, let's get started. got about 5 minutes, keep working, but just wanted to give you an update on our time. 3 more minutes, and what we will do next is, we're not gonna share the whole thing, but we'll just pick little sections. If you look at it, you see it's broken out into little sections there. So you'll get together. I'm gonna online do breakout rooms. So Zoom will randomly assign you to a group. You'll share a couple pieces from this story, and then we'll come back together and move through the next piece. Our folks in the room look like we're done. Online, how are we doing? Anyone need just a little bit more time, or are we ready for breakout groups? Ready. Thank you, Suzanne. I'll go with it. Okay, I've never used these before, so bear with me. I'm gonna try something new. We'll use the breakout rooms. We will do 3 participants per room, and we'll come back together in about 5 minutes. I'll close the breakout rooms and we'll come back for some whole group conversation. All right. Yes, there is. I'm gonna mute. Let's see what the chat says. Ready, perfect. I'm gonna mute myself on the computer online. I can still hear you guys, but okay. I think that you guys, oh, broadcast voice. I think you guys can hear me. Hopefully you can. If you haven't shared a little tidbit yet, please do. I'll end the breakout rooms here in just a few seconds, and bring us all back together. So start wrapping up. Pretty cool. I taught virtually. I was a special education teacher and middle school math, 2 different jobs during COVID. And so you'd think I'd have this like hybrid thing figured out, but no, not quite. No. And they tried, I think they wanted me to be a guinea pig because Joy and Ben at the Small Business Center were like sending me all these notes and things about how to log in. And I don't know that they do this very much either. So I think they were like, Maddie, we'll just test it on you and see how it goes to do hybrid. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
We'll see. All right. Let me close these. All right. Oh, cool. It gives them 60 seconds to leave. Very cool.
I was just thinking, man, it's just gonna cut them off.
I know, that's really cool. Yeah, pull them back.
You're done.
You're done. All right, so let's minimize this. Cool. Hopefully they come back. That would be funny. I see your strengths book. My go-to, my favorite one.
One CA for a time.
Mm-hmm.
And so after we were all laid off, it'd be great.
Really like, oh,
Oh, you're good. Welcome back.
No, the YMCA made me do it. Like I said, there was a good accidental, maybe sound part. But,
Yeah,
but
it was part of their process.
yeah, but it is good to, work on your strengths.
It's a cheat, a cheat sheet, I feel like, is what I always say. Okay, cool. I think we're all back. Awesome. So in the packet, the next little phase will be an opportunity to kind of reflect, thinking back again to some of those childhood experiences and how you've sort of evolved since then. I find most people are one of 3 versions of themselves. They're either kind of the older version of who they always were, a stranger to your younger self, or maybe somewhere in between. So I'm gonna take some time to kind of highlight my story and how I see those quirks of my childhood showing up in my day-to-day today and how it affects me as a leader. And so I want to invite you to kind of reflect on that as I go through. Okay. So I always go back through old photos when I prepare for these workshops. And most of the photos had, well, one of 2 things. I'll get to the second one, but most of the pictures had something of me being like silly, crazy, playful, doing something fun. So that picture on the right-hand side here is actually from our 3rd grade talent show. We did Greased Lightning, and we were on the cover of our town's newspaper, not magazine. So I was always known for doing something playful and silly. And so into adulthood, that just translates into kind of my wedding or even just friendships and relationships, bringing that kind of lighthearted silliness. And so I use some psychometric assessments to help me understand what I look like at my best. 2 of those that I rely on most are the Strengths Finder, which would call this part of my personality positivity, and the Virtues in Action, which would call this like zest or love of life. So I hope, again, kind of as you start to see the way I tell my story, you might be able to make some similar connections. In childhood, again, looking through some of those old pictures, if it wasn't a picture of me dancing or doing something funny, I had like an animal or a baby doll or a stuffed animal in my lap. So I've always been very nurturing, very caring to the people and things around me. And so in adulthood, I've seen that show up with the Strengths Finder name developer. Additionally, the Virtues in Action calls it kindness and love. So that shows up in my day-to-day life, of course, in my leadership style as well. The next kind of thing that stood out to me when I was looking through these childhood photos was that I was incredibly determined and hardworking. So the first picture is when I broke my arm in kindergarten. I was doing something in gymnastics and they told me not to do it, and I did it anyway, and I broke both of the bones in my arm and ended up having surgeries and, you know, bit off way more than I could chew, even at a very young age. And so the second picture, my brothers are much older than me and they were playing football, and I just wanted to be out there on the field with them. And so our high school invited me to join them in the cheerleading, you know, routines for one game. And my parents reluctantly said yes, but they thought, you know, Maddie will wear out in the first quarter. They said I made it through the whole game and of course passed out once I got in the car. But again, just kind of always had a strong head on my shoulders and decided that when I set my mind to something, I wasn't going to fall short. So in adulthood, I've learned that that's called achiever. According to StrengthsFinder, or leadership, that's Virtues in Action. My freshman year of college, if, you know, going to a big state school and living away from home and all wasn't enough, I decided to run a monogramming business from my dorm room because, you know, why not? And then I mentioned this to our group in the class earlier that I moved to North Carolina 30 weeks pregnant, away from family and friends, just to kind of get a fresh start in the mountains. So when most people would say I was crazy, I had my mind set and I was going to make it happen. Another piece of that childhood self that is still there for me today is my ability to build very deep friendships. I don't need a bunch of friends, but I want a few really good ones. So the picture on the left-hand side is from my middle school talented theater headshot, I guess. And someone had written on the top, "My life without her is like a broken pencil, pointless," you know, something so cheesy. But just kind of brings some humor into that sense of really deep friendships that I always had. And the second picture is of me with my friend Larissa. Larissa has Down syndrome and has been part of my life since I was like 3. A dear friend of mine. And the image underneath is a letter I had written in 2009 to my future self about all the things I wanted to do to help my friends like Larissa. So just again, like, it wasn't enough to just be friends with someone. I wanted my whole life to be dedicated to helping them, right? So just a little bit of that childhood spirit that is still present today. The picture on the left is my friend Liz. 2 weeks after my first child was born, we decided to travel and go to her baby shower because I just couldn't stand the thought of not being there to celebrate her. And the picture on the right is a friend named Abby. She lives in the Pacific Northwest. We don't talk very much, but when we do, it's like we didn't miss a beat. So StrengthsFinder calls that relator, which is kind of like an island of trust. You're very deeply connected to the people on your island. And then perspective is what the Virtues in Action assessment would call it, kind of a trusted advisor, deep friendship there. So the point of this is, yes, hopefully you get to know me a little bit better, but really just to show you this idea that there are parts of you that were present in childhood that you maybe have lost touch with, or maybe don't know are still there within you today, that I believe are critical to understanding in order to be your best self and your best leader for your staff. Maslow said it best. I think there is this inner desire for all of us to fulfill this potential, to maximize what we were created to do. So what one can be, one must be. So that kind of speaks to the inner longing of all of us to maximize that potential. So just pointing you back to the packet, again, kind of helping you reflect if you like to journal or write things down as you go. Something to think about as we watch our next video is, what did you love doing? What did other people praise you for? What came easy for you? Because often it took me a long time to find these little parts of my personality that were present since childhood. But when I started to think about what did people praise me for as a child, that helped me uncover some of those secret connections there. So feel free to use your packet to kind of help you reflect. And we're going to watch a quick video on, this idea of hidden genius. And somebody online, once I start this, let me know if you cannot hear the video, but I believe you should be able to.
How you? I'm good. What's your name? My name is Landau Murphy Jr. I'm Landau Eugene Murphy Jr. I'm from Logan, West Virginia. I'm 36 years old. I've been washing cars for about 10 years, but my real dream is to come sing for the world. I'm here to show America that I have talent. Auditions for nothing. Been washing cars. I've washed thousands and thousands of cars. I've scrubbed so many PF Goodrich tires. I don't want to see another piece of rubber again. I've been up to here in bubbles. And now it's just time to go somewhere else. Let me see you put it down.
Nothing at Howie.
I love Howard. I love you, dude. Oh, well, thank you. That's very that's very nice. Little Bobby.
My name is Bobby.
Pretty good.
What's your name?
My name is Landau Eugene Murphy Jr.
Landau, are you chewing gum?
Yes, I am.
I wouldn't do that when you're performing in this show, seriously.
You. That's better. Where are you from, Landau?
I'm from Logan, West Virginia.
Okay.
Yes.
And what are you going to do for us today?
Well, I do all kind of music, but tonight I'm just trying to follow my dream.
What do you do for a living?
I was recently washing cars out of my new car detailer.
All right. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Hey, were you miming?
No, I was not. That's my real voice.
Yeah, I gotta say, you were such a surprise. You know, the look versus the music that you were doing. I did not expect it. That's what I know. Personally, I'm a huge fan of Frank Sinatra. You know what I mean? And you talk about bringing things back. What better way to bring it back than with your look and who you are?
You come out on this stage chewing your gum, doing your silly Bobby impressions and your Howie Mandel hero worship, and I'm thinking this is going to be total train wreck. If I'm honest, I thought honestly, I really did. I just thought this guy is not serious.
Right.
And then he began to sing, and I couldn't believe quite what I was hearing.
Insurance all seems the same until file claims, schedule repair.
Goodbye.
Hi, that's my real voice, Sinatra. You know what? Never can win. Become what might for the sake of.
You are a very unusual talent. You're the kind of reason that we like doing the show, because you come
I
in and
would sacrifice anything, come what might, for the sake of having you near, in spite of a warning voice that comes in the night and repeats how it yells in my ear. Don't you know? Reality, get up, wake up to reality.
We're gonna vote. Okay, cheers.
Landau, I can see you're emotional. You're probably emotional because, as I say, you didn't know how good you were. And now you do. So I'm going to say yes.
Come on. You know what it is. Yes.
See you in Vegas.
Thank you, New York.
Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I want to be a part of it. New York, New York.
Amazing.
That was great.
Amazing.
I just never knew it, man. I never knew that they would love me like this.
That was one of the most surprising moments we've ever.
Well, online, I think you guys heard some. I apologize if you didn't catch all of it. I can make sure to send it out after the class. But somebody did observe that, yes, his performance was remarkable, of course. That was the punchline. But the thing that is most important, and he says it right when he walks off stage, is he says, I never knew that they could love me like that. And, you know, he does go on to win, you know, spoiler alert, he becomes, you know, the winner of America's Got Talent. But it took 34 years for him to understand that the thing he did effortlessly, singing, you know, could bring so much joy to the world. And so that's what I believe about harnessing the power of the way you're wired and understanding how you show up at your best in order to lead your teams most effectively and how to leverage the strengths of the people on your team. So I think it can have profound effects on people's lives. And I think it can have profound impacts in the workplace as well. So to borrow a quote from Walt Disney, the more you're like yourself, the less you are like anyone else, which makes you unique. So again, it's very important to understand how you're wired, how you show up at your best, and how your team is wired and how you can use their strengths. Mike Vance was a prodigy of Walt Disney. And he says the problem with most people is that they spend their lives trying to emulate others. So we have lots of copies, but very few originals. Nobody wants to go to kind of like Disney. So earlier I introduced you to my colleague, Stan Gibson. And so I could spend all my days trying to become Stan, right? I could do everything I possibly could to harness his magic and the things he does uniquely and try and be Stan Gibson. But then I'm only ever kind of like Stan Gibson, right? Just like Mike Vance's quote. Nobody wants kind of like Stan Gibson. Everybody wants Maddie and the gifts that I bring, right? So the idea is that we need to uncover the hidden potential in ourselves and others as leaders. And so this actually comes from a study that NASA had conducted where they were, in the Apollo program, they were looking to find the best and brightest engineers for their mission. And so they created an assessment, and basically they would bring up things like this remote, and they'd say, how many uses can you think of for this remote, right? And so they'd count kind of the novelty of the answers. They would count the uniqueness of your answers, kind of the creativeness of your answers, and they'd score you along this imaginative index. And so one of the researchers, his name was George Land, noticed that this assessment was a non-written test. So you didn't have to know how to read in order to take this assessment, even though they were trying to find the best and brightest engineers, right? So George Land goes out and he decides to give it to 3 to 5-year-olds. Now I think it was 1,600 or so. And he found that 98% of them tested at the genius level, like the highest peak performance of this imaginative index. And so obviously very astonishing. What's more astonishing is that 5 years later, he assessed those same kids and only 30% were testing at that genius level. So something happened between ages 3 to 5, 5 years old, let's say, and 10 years old that caused a significant portion of these kids to lose touch with that creative, imaginative thinking that they had when they were 3 to 5. Obviously, you can see the numbers here. 5 years later, when they're 15, only 10% are scoring at that genius level. And George Land was so blown away by this research that he went out and assessed 30-year-olds. He couldn't even wait till these kids were 30. So he grabbed some other people in the population and found that only 2% scored at that genius level. So just more than the numbers or the ages really are trying to tell anything here, what I want you to catch is that there's something hidden, there's something critical to those childhood formative years that we need to uncover in order to show up at our best as leaders and in our lives today. So in your packet, I think the third kind of section of that page says, when did you start to play it safe? I'm going to read this story from Jim Carrey. Let's see, just make sure. Oh yes, Leah. Leah is the child expert in the room. But Jim Carrey once said, my dad, it's cut off for me. Let me try this. Jim Carrey once said, my dad could have been a great comedian, but I didn't think that was possible for him. Instead of following his passion, he made a conservative decision and landed a secure job as an accountant. However, when I was 12, he was laid off from that safe job and our family had to do everything they could to survive. That experience taught me something profound. Even if you play it safe, you can fail. You can fail at something you don't like, so why not take a chance on what you really love? That's what I learned from my father. It's not just about what life can offer, it's about what you're willing to pursue without fear of failure, because the biggest risk is not trying. So oftentimes, the secret happens. There's a multitude of reasons why you might lose that childhood genius. But something causes us to play it safe, whether that's socialization. Some people think it's education. There's many, many, many things. But reflect on that of when you feel like you started to play it safe. The next, here we go. I told you I have positivity as a strength according to the StrengthsFinder, so I don't like to sit there very long. And so I will say this too. I believe that you were born with a genius spark that still exists within you, even if it may be hidden. So I think that we lose touch with some of that creative, flexible thinking that we had as kids, but it's not gone forever. I think that it's important as leaders to excavate it, to cultivate it, and to uncover it so that we can lead our teams well. The next question, and this is just for you to ponder, what's your magic trick? What is the thing that makes you uniquely you? What is your hidden genius that has been a part of you since childhood? A lot of us have a hard time answering that because we don't like to think of the things that we do naturally, but maybe there are some tools that can help. So if you're not familiar with the StrengthsFinder assessment, it is, I think, $25 to take it and get your top 5 strengths. So it's relatively affordable for the individual person. But it's a great first glimpse into how you're wired and how you operate your best. What the StrengthsFinder assessment is measuring is it's actually measuring the neurons that are firing in your brain the fastest and the strongest. And so there's a timing element to it as well. Some people really hate me when I tell them that. But that's what it's trying to do. It's trying to gauge that most natural, most instinctive part of your brain. But the results of this assessment are just one piece of the picture. That's why I like to include that famous photo of the guy painting his own self-portrait, because I think we have to take those results and actually do something with them to help us create ownership over them, to feel like they're really connected to who we are. And so I use a process called the Genius Spark to kind of help unpack those results. Rex Miller has been a business mentor, friend, colleague of mine. We've gotten to do projects together, and he created this. He's been doing it for many years and is finally packaging it up so the rest of the world can harness his genius. But I think there's a very important part of any of these psychometric assessments that you have to take it and learn it and apply it to how you see yourself show up at your best. So I use that Genius Spark process to help with that. And then it outputs, that picture on the right shows you my results. So it gives you kind of the cheat sheet, the top 5 strengths. And then there's a process for building a paragraph, kind of helping you create the narrative around those top 5 strengths and customizing it. So, the next thing I want to do is in your packet, and I'm not going to make everyone take the Strengths Finder assessment today, so don't worry, you're not going to have to pay $25 to do that. But I still want to give you the same start of a cheat sheet. And so there's a gain and drain exercise in your packet. Don't worry about the colors or the zones. That's kind of a deeper dive on some of the Genius Spark stuff that I do, but I still think it will give you a glimpse into how you might most naturally be wired. So the gain being something you really enjoy, something that gives you energy, something you could do all day and not feel tired. And the drain being the things that zap your energy. If you have one of these things, if you have to do this once in your day, your whole day feels exhausting. So just go through. I don't even know if we need the full, I'll set the 5-minute timer. We may finish before that, but just check off, each of these things. And, is this something that gives me energy? Is it a gain or is it a drain? Yes, I will give the next instruction after you spend some time doing that. So let's start with the gain and drain. If you are still working, keep going. One way to take this a little bit deeper is to think about your day-to-day and your work. And so you can always jot down a couple things that are asked of you every day and ask yourself, do these things give me energy? Are they a gain, or do they drain me, or they deplete me? So you could kind of customize some of the prompts here. And then another way to take this a little bit deeper is to think about your team. Where I say gain, where I say drain, is there something that your colleague might say gain, right? Is there a way to work together to say, the things that totally deplete me actually energize you? So how do we work together differently using that common language? My husband and I are a prime example. He is all the green, looking at this, the thinking zone, all those things are gain for him. They're almost all drain for me. And so we work really well together because he can do the deep thinking and the research, and I can, make the decisions and execute. I'm more of that acting zone. So as you think about yourself, what gain and drain is for you, think about the partners, the people in your organizations that you partner with. Great exercise for this too is going through someone's job description and doing the same thing. What parts of their job description energize them? What parts of their job description deplete them? And having a conversation there. Got about a minute left. Avoid the buzzer sound for the timer and to avoid giving anyone a scare. I will pause that. But yeah, this is a really simple exercise, and more than this paper is like the secret sauce to this. Again, think about taking this concept of gain and drain and having those conversations in your organization. But it starts with you first as the leader. So moving to this. So not only is it enough to know your own magic trick, I really believe the most effective way, or the best way to be an effective leader, is to know the magic trick of each person on your team. So I challenge you tomorrow or next week this week before I see you again, think about the magic tricks that you see. It doesn't even have to be on your team. It can be the people in the grocery store. In fact, we were at Ingles the other day getting some sandwiches, and I'm telling you that the guy who made the sandwich, just like, it was an art form. And so I stopped him and I told him, like, you're really good at your job. You know, you can make a sandwich and make it look like art. It looks like magic to me, but it was natural and intuitive to him. And I mean, his face lit up and he just couldn't believe it that I could see how hard he was working. So just take the opportunity to think about your magic trick over the next week. Think about the magic tricks of the people on your team, or just the people around you. And if you feel so bold, call it out in them, because oftentimes it's natural for people and they don't recognize that it's a gift and magic. So tell them when you see their magic trick. I'm going to break another rule of presentation and read this directly off the slide. But so much of leadership, again, is kind of a transformation process and a willingness to move outside of kind of the standard way that you operate to be your best self. And so this process of transformation is what this quote is referring to. This process is part ecological conservation and part archaeology. We're going to dredge waterways that are full of silt, clearing away the debris of self-doubt and general uncertainty. We will shore up the banks and reinforce the levees so we can clearly see what we look and feel like when we're thriving. We will identify moments that changed our course and moments that solidified it. Once we're able to accurately and confidently describe what we look like at our best, we will be able to consistently move toward that state in our daily lives. So what this illuminates here is that it starts with this kind of discovery moment of what are my gifts, what's my magic trick? But we have to actually do some work in order to transform and to show up as that best self in our daily lives. So our brains are actually the most calorie consuming organs in our body. And so it's constantly filtering between two things. It's either determining, what do I want or desire? And what could kill me? And so our other times, if those filters don't determine a threat, right? Our brains are operating in our default mode. And so what we want to do is we actually want to get this best picture, uncover this magic trick, how we are wired at our best. And we want to train our brains to operate to that state in default mode. So athletes, I keep getting confused with my computers, I apologize. Athletes have learned this. So Michael Phelps is the prime example of a strategy called visualization. And we see professional athletes actually spending less time in the pool, for Michael Phelps's example, and more time doing this process of visualizing, imagining that peak performance. How many strokes do I have to get to the end of the pool in this amount of time. And so actually engaging your senses will give you 90% of the effects of actually doing the exercise. So again, this idea being, if we have this performance criteria or this idea of how we show up at our best, and we can train our brains to operate that way when it's in default mode, we're going to be more likely to show up at our best on a day-to-day basis and show up at our best for the people that we're leading. So this is my performance criteria. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. You can use any system, like it doesn't even have to be a psychometric assessment, but the idea is that you need some grounding, kind of foundational discovery of what you look like at your best in order to train your brain to show up as that best self. This is just the tool that I've used, which is again the combination of the StrengthsFinder assessment and the Genius Spark process to building these paragraphs. So I mentioned this briefly, and you have a version of this in your packet. It's this image of a ladder and finding your sweet spot. I've mentioned a lot about the discovery, that aha moment. So for me, that was when I took the StrengthsFinder assessment for a job that I was in. I was working in retail, and it was part of like the corporate onboarding. I had to take the assessment, and I had this aha moment when I saw my results. Positivity is my #1 strength. So at first I was like shocked because I knew I was a positive person, but I never saw it as a strength. So that was a little bit of the aha there. The second piece of the aha was, man, I really wish I had another strength. I really wanted someone else's strength, right? Because again, when they're natural, when they're intuitive, we don't feel like they're a superpower. So you've got to have that aha moment. You've got to have something that helps you put language to that hidden genius that I think has been there since childhood. And for me, that was when I took my assessment. And again, in that packet, you've got a tool that will help you kind of reflect as I'm sharing my story with this. Moving on, it's not enough just to aha. So when I was in that job and I took that test, we kind of filed it away. I think I maybe had one meeting with my manager, and we never really talked about it much again. And so I had the discovery, and then it sort of faded away after that. So then fast forward a few months, and I ended up in an internal HR, director of HR role for a tech company. They were also coincidentally using this assessment, and I was thrilled because, wow, I can undust those results and maybe I will learn something new. So because that was a really important part of their culture, they had hired me to go through some training to really understand the StrengthsFinder and the Genius Spark stuff. So I started to dive deep into my top 5 strengths. I started to dive deep into how I was wired and how I show up at my best. And I started to understand the nuance between all of the things in my childhood and the way that I was showing up in my day-to-day. Then once I kind of put the pieces together almost in that understanding stage, I was experiencing it in real time. So I could see, again, the language I use is StrengthsFinder. It can be any assessment, it can be any tool, but I started to experience my positivity helping me when I was doing this work with my staff. I was teaching them about their hidden potential and their hidden genius. So the positivity was able to bring some of that spark and that joy back in my conversations. My restorative, which is another strength, I was constantly putting out fires. If you've ever worked with people, which I think we all probably have in some capacity, it's like constant fires. It's constant, people are sick and life happens. And so it's constantly putting out fires. I could see my strengths putting up fires all the time in that role. Empathy is another one of my strengths, and I was also responsible for not just hiring, which was the fun stuff, but the firing. And I could see my empathy really showing up and being important to that position because I was able to sit with people in a really difficult time. So again, you discover it, you have that aha moment, you start to understand it, put the pieces together, and then you actually experience it in action, experience it in real time. And then, of course, you not only experience the benefits, you also start to see the kryptonite. We call it the kryptonite or the shadow side. You experience the not so good stuff about your strengths. So in StrengthsFinder language, again, what they're measuring is how fast and strong the neurons are firing. Well, sometimes the neurons fire inappropriately or incorrectly. So maybe I don't need positivity in a firing conversation. You know, maybe it's helpful, but maybe it goes into overdrive sometimes. And so in your kind of day-to-day experience, as you start to experience your strengths, the genius, the magic trick, you're also going to start to experience the kryptonite or the shadow side of when those parts of you become overused or misused. I have numerous examples of that. I had an employee, a colleague who just really didn't care for me. And the CEO didn't really know what to do because I was the HR person. So he threw us in a meeting together and just kind of let this guy, you know, share his grievances. And that was the end of the meeting. And so my positivity was crushed because I just couldn't see how that was productive. I couldn't see it anything more than just like a rant. My empathy was obviously very drained, right? And so I was like really experiencing the downside, the shadow side of the kryptonite in that moment. And then my relator, which was probably the most detrimental to me in that moment, decided he was off my island. So relator is about, again, remember those deep relationships, those deep friendships. My relator was like, well, I'm done with that guy. And so I decided, you know, subconsciously that anytime we had to work together, I was going to be really, you know, not happy about it. And so you can see, again, just the point of that being, you can see the peak moments, the great times your magic trick shows up, and then you can see how it gets in your way. But then there's this beautiful opportunity where you're not in that overdrive or default mode where your brain kind of gives you the choice to either say, are you going to use your magic trick for good here? Or are you going to show up in the kryptonite side, right? And so as you go through and you're experiencing it in action and you're starting to see the kryptonite, you almost get this secondary like pause, and you get to kind of ask yourself, am I going to use my strengths, you know, for the good or for the bad, right? And so you get this opportunity to perform under pressure. And so you can, I mean, again, so many stories, especially with this guy, we'll call him Bob, who I didn't get along with, but I found many opportunities where I could lean in. Another one of my strengths, if you look in my paragraph, it says, I speak light into dark places. I have a way about me that can put things on the table that nobody wants to put on the table. And there were a lot of things in that role, in that job, in that relationship that needed to be put on the table. And so I found myself constantly having this perform under pressure opportunity where I could either kind of shrink back and just like ignore that my gifts wanted to be used there, or I could lean in and actually, you know, do something about it and use those strengths and those talents. So as you move through this transformation and as you move through this process of understanding how you operate at your best, you get these opportunities to perform under pressure or not. And then lastly, kind of, I link these two together, kind of mastery and virtue, at least that's been my experience, is that once I started to zoom out a little bit more and see the bigger picture of my strengths and my hidden genius, I could see how I was using them to help the people around me or the team around me or the people that I was leading. And so again, all of this, you know, now I'm in a position where I'm able to help organizations all over the country. I use my gifts to serve multiple different industries, multiple different size organizations. I'm able to kind of move more towards that mastery or that virtue sense. It's not just about me and my strengths. It's about how can I use these to serve the business leaders around me. So if you have been able to reflect and process kind of your own story, that ladder is a really great way to think through the transformation and how you show up at your best and how you can just go one step closer towards rewiring that default mode in your brain. So for the sake of time, I don't think we'll get to share these, but I want to give you 10 minutes or so, maybe we'll do 5, to kind of tie the bow on your own story and this kind of analogy of the ladder and finding your sweet spot. So take about 5 minutes. I know this is a 10-minute timer. I'll start us at 5 here, but take about 5 minutes to reflect. And if you need a break, that's good too. Yeah, go for it. about a minute left, so just keep working or come back to this, but got about a minute and a half. I can right here. And for anyone else who might need it. All right, so something to think about too is using this with your team, you know, especially those kind of key folks in your organization that you would love to see grow their responsibility and you'd be devastated if they left. Start thinking about how, and it might not always be appropriate to do all of this, but to have these kinds of conversations in your organization to help them develop, because the secret to keeping employees happy for the long run is to help them feel like they're using their strengths and their gifts. I can't remember the numbers. I'll do some research. I'll write this down to report back to you for the next one. But there have been so many studies and reports on what keeps employees motivated and happy and retained for the longest. And it's that they feel like they're adding value. They feel like they're making an impact. And so working backwards from that, if your employees want to add value, if your employees want to make an impact, you need to know how they're wired. You need to know what their gifts are and what their strengths are to kind of help fulfill that and bridge that gap. So just a bonus tidbit there, thinking how could you have these conversations with your staff? I'm not going to show this clip again, just for the sake of time, but, and I'm not a movie guru, so please forgive me if I get some of the details wrong, but many of us know Spider-Man, and we know that his kryptonite is often the thing that gets in his way the most, which is his ability to care so deeply to help the common good, right? And so this is a clip from a clip from one of the movies where he kind of has this, we call it a red pill, blue pill moment if you've ever watched The Matrix, but he has this opportunity either to throw himself in front of the train, literally, to stop it and save the people, or to kind of sit back and let it derail and run off the tracks. And so that's that same perform under pressure opportunity that I was talking about earlier. When we notice that there's a chance for us to step in and use our strengths, and we choose to lean in, right? That's like the best and highest use. But oftentimes we don't. And so just an encouragement to, when you feel that pull, to use your strengths, to step in and use them. Don't ignore them. Another way to, oh goodness. Another way to kind of uncover this peak performance ideal state is to use what we call the alter ego effect, which comes from a book written by Todd Herman. And basically it talks about, you know, the idea that if you want a trait, just act as if you already have it. So we often use, I think it's Beyonce with Sasha Fierce, right? She has this kind of alter ego that she uses, and maybe she doesn't feel as confident to get up on stage and perform as Beyonce, but she feels more comfortable if she kind of goes into that alter ego persona mode. So this idea of giving your brain that desired peak performance persona to kind of step in and fill their shoes. So you'll see this one's a lot of fun for people who are like movie experts. Again, I am not, so this is always a really hard exercise for me. But there is an exercise, excuse me, in your packet that kind of walks you through the way to identify a hero character that helps you perform and operate at your best. And sometimes that's a movie character. For me, sometimes it's Mary Poppins because she's that spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. Like that's the positivity, but also like you're still going to take your medicine. So sometimes the Mary Poppins persona kind of helps me when I'm in that perform under pressure mode. But I've also had people do this and they say it's somebody that they know personally. This hero persona doesn't have to be a fictional character. It can be someone that you look up to and really admire. But the idea is you're identifying traits that you want to embody. You're giving your brain those coordinates, and you're kind of outlining, you're giving yourself that opportunity to reflect on the peak state. So I've got a 3-minute timer here, I think, or maybe it's a 5-minute timer. I think we have time to do it. I won't give us the full 5 minutes. I'll give us about 3. But this is a fun one, so you can do this in your spare time too. And another opportunity too, if you get stumped here. My husband works in technology, so we use a lot of technology in our house, but AI is a great partner in this. So if you don't know a lot of hero characters or movie characters, you could always use something like ChatGPT to help you get started with this. Yeah, right outside the door. Just going to read this while you're working. I love this quote from the bottom. It says, "This process of becoming your best self to help others become their best selves is a powerful spiritual and psychological ideal. The ultimate heroic question is simple. The hero becomes the guide." So I think that's probably the essence of how I view leadership, or maybe even the future of leadership. It might not be the leadership that we've inherited, or we know to this point, but I believe leadership is moving in a direction where the hero, the boss, the leader, actually becomes the guide, and that being the most effective way to lead your staff. So here, and then we'll jump into the last phase. Start kind of closing your thought there.
This is like ChatGPT for your.
I've heard me talk about ChatGPT, huh? Okay. So I've said this before, but I'll say it again. Part of operating and leading at your best means not only taking care of your mind, but also taking care of your body. So I do want to kind of throw out some best practices for well-being, physically and mentally, before we wrap up today. We will look at kind of 4 key domains, looking at sleep, nutrition, hydration, fitness, and movement. I guess 5, and rest and recovery. So starting with sleep, lots of benefits here. Most of us know that sleep is really good for us, but maybe we have a hard time committing to it, right? But we do believe 7 to 8 hours is optimal. It's important for your body to get through all 4 stages of sleep. Most specifically, the REM stage is actually going to repair your mind. So we really want to let our bodies get through that REM stage. And the deep sleep is actually important for repairing and replenishing your body. So lots of great benefits to commit to sleep as we start our new year and learn about being the best version of ourselves. Oh, Suzanne, great question in the chat about the StrengthsFinder assessment. The question was, is it pretty stable? She says she took it about 8 years ago. So typically, Gallup, the people who produce the assessment, say to take it retake it every, I think it's 5 years, maybe it's 3, I think it's 5. But within 5 years that the results stay pretty consistent. If you unlock all 34, what you'll find is actually your top 10 probably will stay the same no matter what, no matter how often you take it. They might change the order just slightly in those top 10. But yes, I would recommend maybe retaking it. They also say to retake it after a significant life event, which I know most of us have been affected by a very significant event recently with Helene. And that can cause your priorities, your strengths, your wiring, what matters to you, to shift as well. So I would say every 5 years, would be a good time to retake the assessment. And if you've experienced a major life event. So thank you for the question, Suzanne. Jumping back into sleep. So this is a great book that is recommended. It's called Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker. Some strategies for better sleep. So consistency in your routine, both when you go to sleep and you wake up, bless you, are really important. Taking a walk outside in the sunlight within 1 hour of waking kind of resets the circadian rhythm. So feel free to just take a picture of these or screenshot them or whatever. Exercising definitely promotes the body's natural ability to sleep. Journal or reading, but yes, those are great. But most importantly, I think it's no technology 1 hour before sleep. Keeping your thermostat to cool. Now in New Orleans, my thermostat never left cool. I know here in the mountains, it does get pretty cold, but again, this idea is just to keep a cool sleep environment. Investing in a good sound machine, blackout curtains, grounding sheets, lots of different tools to help promote great sleep. And I did mention the book already. Jumping to nutrition, looking to nutrition as fuel for our bodies. Our gut is actually considered our second brain. And so we have lots and lots of bacteria, some good, some bad in our gut. And so it's really important to make sure we are promoting a healthy balance in our gut. Lots of benefits to proper nutrition. One consequence of poor nutrition is actually inflammation, which can cause a lot of different illnesses and conditions. Feeding the gut feeds the heart. And so heart disease is also another big thing to protect with your good nutrition as well. I'm sorry if I'm moving quickly. I want to make sure we have time for questions at the end. Some strategies for nutrition. I think the start of a new year is perfect for this kind of conversation. So we can focus on the right portions of protein, carbs, and fat. What you're feeding your gut with, making sure it's all the healthy things, including prebiotics, trying to get at least 5 to 9 cups of vegetables and fruit. I just think this is a funny quote. 5 is fine, 9 is divine. And then intermittent fasting, if you haven't heard of that, what that means is basically doing an extended period of non-eating, and followed by a period of consuming all of your food within a window. So what's recommended is a 16-hour fast without eating, and an 8-hour window where you are consuming your nutrition. So I am not a doctor. I am not a scientist. This is the research I have read, but talk to your doctor before making any decisions. Some really great foods to incorporate into your diet that are really great for your brain. I've got listed there: avocados, blueberries, broccoli, dark chocolate, eggs, big green leafy vegetables, salmon, sardines, turmeric, walnuts, and of course, water. So that leads us to talking about water. Gets often overlooked. There's so much of our body is composed of water. So this is just some rough percentages of how much water is stored in each of these parts of your body. And then let's see, according to the Mayo Clinic, coffee, so hydration, coffee counts if it's black coffee. Yes, coffee has many benefits and can lower a lot of your risk, especially dark roast. You want to drink at least half your weight of in ounces of fluid each day or until your urine is slightly yellow. Drink at least 8. This is another great thing that goes with kind of before you go for your walk in the morning to reset your circadian rhythm. If you grab a glass of water with lemon and salt, it kind of helps wake up your immune system as well. Fitness and movement do so many wonderful things for our body. They produce cortisol, which reduces fear. It gets oxygen pumping to our prefrontal cortex, which is the command center of our brain. Serotonin, which is responsible for happiness, dopamine, drive, BDNF, repairs brain cells and stress, telomeres, delays aging. And I think I'm a mom with young kids. This is not realistic for me to go to the gym every day. And so I think you have to repurpose the way you think about fitness. That's why I say fitness and movement, because it doesn't have to just be going to the gym to lift weights. It can be parking in the back of the parking lot and walking to the front of the store to get a little bit more exercise and movement in your day. So just that's an important one to me. Some more strategies when it comes to fitness and movement, and a great book recommendation as well. You want to get a balance of aerobic and anaerobic exercise, which is basically just referring to the intensity and the benefits, the kind of benefits that your body gets from each type. Yes. Okay, and then recovery, rest, and simplification. So important to schedule downtime to rest and recover. 2025, our calendars just reset, so it's a great opportunity to look at the year ahead and say, okay, when am I going to rest and recover this year, and block it out in your calendar. So often if we don't do it now proactively, it never happens, right? And so, you know, my encouragement to you would be to get that on your calendar as soon as possible, and your employer might be happy too if you put it out this far in advance. I'm looking through to make sure I don't miss anything. This is just an interesting fact. We live in the land of plenty here in the United States. We control over 30% of the world's wealth, but yet as a nation, we're plagued by anxiety, mental illness, and disease. So this can't be overlooked. Some strategies to help rest and recover. There's a book called Essentialism by Greg McKeown. I know I'm not pronouncing the last name correct, so I apologize, but great book called The Disciplined Pursuit of Less. Talked about blocking out your calendar, decluttering, simplifying as much as you can. The book suggests do less things, but do them better. Reject the notion that we should accomplish everything. Constantly question yourself and update your plans accordingly. So very important there. Emily, yes, I'm happy to send out the slides. Great question. Okay. There is a well-being check in the back of your packet, so definitely fill those out, kind of rating where you feel like you are on each of those areas, what you could kind of start, stop, and continue as we launch into this new year. And while you work on that, let me make sure, I think we're just looking for questions. If you don't tell your money where to go, you'll wonder where it went, just like if you don't set your priorities, someone else will. As a leader, sometimes you have to be selfish in order to be selfless. That's the whole message from today. And then we get to questions. So yes, feel free to work on that well-being check. If you have any questions, either unmute, drop them in the chat, ask me here. But I look forward to seeing you the same time, same place next week, where we'll talk more about communication, conflict resolution, and all of the fun things that come with managing people. But thank you so much for your time. Oh, and one other announcement. You will get a survey after class today, so I'll make a note to email you guys the slides. You will also get a survey, so please fill that out. That helps the Small Business Center and Blue Ridge Community College determine the success of these programs, and so it's really critical to have more programs like this to fill out the surveys. But
Thank you.
I will send it next week. Yeah, I don't have it with me. You're welcome. Thank you. Yes, I know. Perfect. Yes, y'all have a wonderful evening. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to give people a few minutes back at the end, you know? If I can. You guys did sign in already? That is, I have to turn that in, so if you don't mind just scribbling on there and say you were here, that would be great. Oh, yeah. I think it counts because it's in your handwriting, so we're good. Yeah, thank you. Fine. I love it. I collected it. I have any pencils and I was gonna pen. There you go. You can take it with you as a souvenir if you want. You still trying to get rid of it? I thought you were trying to. My husband. Yes, it's the same box of pens, yes. Yes, this is mine. And if you're not on the list, they printed it. But just got it down at the bottom. Someone knows. I'm the top seller for one of our. Airbnb was like, what is that? This is really weird. Like, I have so many times. I'll bring it. Lincoln's always like, yeah. I mean, also not your responsibility, but. I know, but I was like, yeah. It's a strange thing to not have. Yeah. It's a note. Yeah. Everyone needs to know. Of course, right? That's really funny. Do you get to see the reviews? Oh, I learned it. Okay, like I have like a monthly reminder to go look at. So it's just like you manually have to go in and see it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if there was bad news, it would be sent my way.
Sure, I'm sure you would hear about it one way or the other.
Reading all the